Everyone dreams of doing things perfectly, right? Whether it is cooking the best meal, acing a test, or creating the perfect life. But what if someone's idea of perfection was committing the perfect murder? This is not some dark fiction that I am talking about. This actually happened some 60 years ago. A couple not only had these thoughts, but shockingly acted on them. They did the unthinkable. They terrorized a nation, shattering the lives of 5 families forever. This is the horrifying story of the Moors murders. To understand the Moors murders, we need to get into the lives of the 2 individuals who came together. They were Ian Brady and Myra Hindley. Ian Brady was born in Glasgow, Scotland, in 1938. His early life was troubled, as he was a difficult child who often got into trouble with the law. After spending time in a borstal, which is a type of youth detention center, he moved to Manchester and worked many jobs before ending up at a chemical company. Myra Hindley, on the other hand, was born in Manchester in 1942. She had a relatively normal childhood. Her father was an ex-soldier who was strict and believed in toughening her up, so he taught her to fight back when necessary. This perhaps planted the seeds for her later violent tendencies. Myra dropped out of school at 15 and worked many jobs before also landing a position at the same chemical company where Ian was working. Ian had a dark and moody look. He had a weird obsession with Nazi stuff. These features were so visible in him. While everyone avoided being around him, Myra found him fascinating. She fell for him fast, and they started dating. Ian showed Myra his creepy hobbies, like violent porn and books on crime and torture. Myra was desperate to impress him and be part of his world, so she got sucked into his twisted ways. One day, the couple shared with each other what a perfect crime would be. This creepy conversation started their deadly partnership. Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, both in love and equally twisted, planned to commit the perfect murder. They dreamt of tricking innocent victims and getting away with it. Ian was the mastermind, but Myra was a willing accomplice. They dreamed of doing something that would give them power and control. They bought a car, practiced taking photographs and recordings, and studied maps of the local moors. Together, they thought of a way to kill that would haunt the nation for decades. This is Pauline Reed. Pauline was a sweet 16-year-old girl who loved dancing and had big dreams. She was the light of her family's life, always smiling and full of energy. One summer evening in 1963, Pauline got all dressed up to go to a local dance. She was excited to have a fun night with her friends. As she made her way to the dance, she had no idea she would run into Ian Brady and Myra Hindley, 2 very dangerous people. Myra stopped Pauline and asked to help find a lost glove. Pauline was a kind-hearted girl, so she agreed. Myra led her to a car where Ian was waiting. They offered Pauline a ride, saying it would only take a few minutes. But instead of a quick ride, they drove her to Saddleworth Moor, a lonely, creepy place. Once they were far away from anyone who could help, Ian attacked Pauline. She fought for her life, but the moor's vast emptiness swallowed her cries. Ian and Myra buried her body there, and this is how their series of terrible crimes started. The next poor victim was John Kilbride. John was a happy 12-year-old boy with a big heart. He loved helping his parents and playing with his friends. One cold November evening in 1963, John went to the local market to earn some pocket money by helping out. On his way home, he met Ian and Myra. Again, Ian and Myra offered him a ride. They promised to take him home safely. Trusting them, John got into their car, not knowing the danger he was in. They drove him to Saddleworth Moor, the same place where they had killed Pauline. Once at the moor, they asked John to get out of the car and pretended like they were just having fun, and it was an adventure. But then Ian attacked him. No one came to help the young boy, who was brutally murdered by the evil duo. Ian and Myra ended his life and buried his body there too. John's disappearance caused panic in the community. His family was devastated, their lives shattered by the loss of their sweet boy. Another innocent child's life was cruelly taken. This is Keith Bennett. Keith was a bright, happy 12-year-old boy who lived in Manchester. He loved exploring the neighborhood and spending time with his family. On the evening of June 16th, 1964, Keith was on his way to his grandmother's house. He said goodbye to his mother and promised her he would see her soon. Little did she know, it would be the last time she would see her son. Keith's path crossed with Ian, Brady, and Myra Hindley that night. Myra approached him and asked for his help with loading some boxes into her car. Trusting her, Keith agreed. Once he was in the car, they drove him to Saddleworth Moor, the same desolate place where they had committed their previous crimes. At the moor, Ian and Myra led Keith away from the car. The young boy had no idea the danger he was in. Ian attacked him, and Keith fought bravely, but he was no match for the two adults. His life was tragically cut short, and they buried his body on the moor. Their next poor victim was Leslie Ann Downey. Leslie was a sweet and innocent 10-year-old girl. She loved playing with her dolls and spending time with her siblings. On December 26, 1964, Leslie went to a local fairground, excited to enjoy the rides and games. Ian and Myra were at the fairground that day, where they were scouting for their next victim. They spotted Leslie and decided she was perfect. Myra approached her and asked if she wanted to help carry some packages to her car. Leslie was a kind and trusting kid, so she agreed. They took her back to Ian's home on Wardlebrook Avenue. Once inside, the horrible act began. They forced Leslie to pose for photographs and then molested her. Ian and Myra recorded the entire thing. They even captured Leslie's terrified cries. Her final moments were filled with fear and pain. They ended her life and buried her body on Saddleworth Moor. And now this 17-year-old handsome boy is Edward Evans. Edward worked hard and enjoyed spending time with his friends. On the evening of October 6, 1965, Edward was out at a local bar, unaware that his life was about to end tragically. Ian spotted Edward and saw him as the perfect target. Using his twisted charm, he struck up a conversation with the young man. Ian offered Edward a ride home and promised it was on his way. Edward was an innocent teen, so he accepted the offer. The ride turned into Edward's worst fear when they reached Myra's house on Wardlebrook Avenue. Ian lured Edward inside, under the pretense of a quick stop. Once inside, Ian suddenly attacked Edward with an axe. He struck him with a force that left the young man bleeding and helpless. Myra watched, cold and detached, as life drained from Edward's eyes. The perfect murder, in their twisted minds, had begun. But this time, there was a witness. Myra's 17-year-old brother-in-law, David Smith, arrived at Myra and Ian's home that evening. He walked in to find Ian in the middle of the attack on Edward. Smith was horrified, frozen by the brutality he was witnessing. Ian, covered in blood, looked at Smith with a calm, chilling demeanor. He instructed him to help clean up the mess. Terrified for his own life, Smith complied, but knew he had to act. Later that night, after leaving Ian and Myra's home, Smith ran to the nearest phone booth and called the police. On October 7, 1965, the police showed up at Ian Brady and Myra Hindley's house after a call from David Smith. The officers entered the home with caution and were led to an upstairs bedroom. There, they found Evan's body, full of blood and lifeless. Ian was arrested on the spot. Ian tried to downplay the situation, saying there had been a fight between himself, Evans, and Smith that got out of hand. He insisted Myra had nothing to do with it. For a brief time, Myra stayed free, but 4 days later, the police found a detailed document in her car, which included every detail of how she and Ian had planned Evan's murder. This tied her directly to the crime. The investigation might have ended there if Smith had not mentioned that Ian bragged about other bodies buried on Saddleworth Moor. They immediately found 2 bodies in the moor, one of John Kilbride and one naked body of Leslie. Even after finding 2 bodies, the police needed further evidence to tie the couple to the 5 murders. This led the police to search their home more thoroughly. They found a luggage ticket that took them to a locker at Manchester Central Station. Inside the locker was a collection of horrifying items, sadistic gadgets, and videos and pictures of Leslie Ann Downey. In the photos, Leslie was seen bound and gagged in Myra's bedroom. Even more chilling was a tape recording of Leslie crying and begging for her life. The brutality of Ian and Myra's actions was undeniable. Though the evidence for John Kilbride's murder was not as strong, it was enough to charge them. Ian and Myra were formally accused of killing Edward Evans, Leslie Ann Downey, and John Kilbride. Despite intensive searches, the bodies of Keith Bennett and Pauline Reed were never found, and no charges were filed for their deaths. The trial began on April 27, 1966, at Chester Assizes, with massive media coverage. Ian and Myra pleaded not guilty and showed no remorse, which only increased public hatred. Myra died in 2002 of respiratory failure after serving 36 years, and Ian died in 2017. Both were despised for their heinous acts all these years. Still, it feels like they were not punished enough for causing so much harm, brutality, and pain to those 5 children and their families. Maybe we need a stronger justice system to make sure no children ever have to suffer again at the hands of lunatics. What do you think? Share your opinions with me in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more shocking crime stories. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.